Welcome, my friend. Welcome back to this quiet space, a sanctuary built just for you at the end of a long, bustling day. If you are brand new here, welcome home. And if you have returned to sit with me once again beneath the soft, fading light of evening, I am genuinely glad you came back tonight. Before we begin our journey through the shifting shadows of the past, I want you to take a moment to simply look at where you are right now. In this exact moment, you are lying down. Perhaps you are tucked safely beneath the heavy warmth of your blanket in bed, or maybe you're resting softly on the couch. You are completely comfortable. The lights around you are probably dim, casting long, peaceful silhouettes across the room. The world outside is slowing down, and very soon you are going to close your eyes and let your mind drift off into a deep, restorative sleep. But before you close your eyes, let me ask you something strange and wonderful to carry into your dreams. What if the very position you're in right now, lying down, relaxed, completely at ease while listening to a voice in the dark, was once considered the absolute height of luxury? What if, 2,000 years ago, only the most powerful and wealthy individuals on earth were permitted to rest like this during the most important hour of their day? Think about the simple act of sharing a meal. Sitting around food with the people you care about feels so natural to us now. It seems like something humans have always done, an unbroken habit from the beginning of time. But what if there was an era deep in our ancient past when the dinner table did not exist? A time when there were no ceramic plates, no polished spoons, no flickering candles, and no warm evening conversations. What if the moment we decided to stop eating in isolation, the moment we chose to sit together in a circle and look into each other's eyes over a shared fire, was the exact moment we truly became human? Tonight we are going to explore the history of how we eat, turning back the pages of time to look at dining habits from a very different world. We will travel from the earliest campfires of our ancestors to the grand, reclining banquet halls of ancient empires. This is not a story of dates and battles, but a gentle exploration of everyday life, designed to inform your mind while soothing your spirit into slumber. The channel Sleepy History with Benedict is a storytelling platform created for entertainment, inspiration, education, and the promotion of positive emotional values. To understand how we arrived at the modern dinner table, we must first travel back to a time before walls, before cities, and before the concept of a home existed. Imagine a world of deep, unbroken silence, where the only sounds at night were the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of nocturnal predators. For millions of years, our earliest ancestors lived in the tight grip of nature's relentless rhythm. Eating was not a social event, it was a matter of pure individual survival. In those ancient days, food was consumed exactly where it was found. It was raw, tough, and incredibly difficult to process. Our ancestors spent hours every single day simply chewing. Their jaws were massive, their teeth heavy, and their digestive systems required an immense amount of the body's daily energy just to break down raw roots, tough fibrous plants, and uncooked meat. There was no time for lingering, no room for manners, and certainly no space for conversation. Food was fuel, and obtaining it was a lonely, exhausting task. But then everything changed. A spark caught a dry leaf, a branch was held over a flame, and humanity discovered fire. The taming of fire is often spoken of as a tool for warmth or defense, but its most profound impact was hidden within the food itself. When humans first placed a piece of raw meat or a tough root into the embers, they inadvertently started the greatest biological revolution in history. In his landmark research, scientist Richard Wrangham explored this exact transformation with quiet, devastating clarity. Cooking acts as a form of pre-digestion. By exposing food to heat, the tough cellular walls of plants are broken down, and the complex proteins in meat are softened before they ever touch human lips. Suddenly, a meal that once took hours of intense chewing and half a day of heavy digestion could be processed by the body in a fraction of the time. This physical shift had a stunning consequence. Because the stomach and the jaw no longer needed to do the heavy lifting, the body suddenly found itself with a massive surplus of energy, energy that had nowhere else to go but upward. Over generations, our digestive tracts grew shorter, our jaws became smaller and more refined, and our brains expanded dramatically. Homo erectus emerged in the fossil record with a brain size nearly double that of its predecessors. We did not just sit around the fire because we were human. The fire and the cooked food it provided made us human. As the physical body transformed through the miracle of cooked food, a deep psychological and social shift began to take root around the embers of these ancient fires. Food was no longer something to be gathered and eaten in solitary haste. It became an anchor, a central point of gravity that pulled individuals out of the darkness and into a shared circle of warmth. In the modern era, anthropologists have looked back at this transition by studying how contemporary hunter-gatherer communities interact with fire. A fascinating study focused on the Juhonsi people of southern Africa revealed a beautiful dichotomy in how humans use light and language. During the bright hours of the day, conversations around the camp are practical, sharp, and economic. People speak of the hunt, the weather, the movement of animals, and the tasks that must be done to survive. The daytime language is the language of work. But when the sun dips below the horizon and the vast cool darkness settles over the land, the atmosphere changes completely around the evening fire. As food is shared and the flames cast a protective glow against the night, the content of human speech shifts from the practical to the poetic. At night, people do not talk about work. They tell stories. They talk about ancestors who lived long ago. They share myths, they laugh, and they discuss deep cultural values. This nocturnal shift created the very foundation of human culture. The shared evening meal became a safe space where the mind could wander beyond the immediate pressure of survival. In the safety of the firelight, with a full stomach and the soft murmur of familiar voices, early humans experienced the first true instances of collective relaxation. It was here, in these unhurried moments before sleep, that our capacity for imagination, empathy, and community was born. Every time we dim the lights today, light a candle on a dining table, or gather with friends to talk late into the night, we are repeating a ritual that is nearly 2 million years old. We are stepping back into the sacred circle, using the peace of a shared evening to let our defenses drop and our minds rest. Before we leave the ancient fires behind and travel forward in time, let your mind rest on the sheer slowness of that world. There were no clocks to measure the passing of the hours, no urgent schedules waiting to be met when the sun rose. Time was measured simply by the burning down of a log, the movement of the stars across the dark sky, and the gradual heavying of the eyelids. In many early villages, this sense of connection was embodied by a single central vessel, the continuous pot. This was a heavy earthenware or metal pot that sat perpetually over the hearth fire. It was never truly emptied. Each day, whatever fresh roots, grains, or meats were gathered would be added to the rich, simmering broth. The flavors of yesterday blended seamlessly with the food of today, creating an unbroken chain of nourishment that sustained the entire community. To eat from the shared pot was to accept a deep bond of trust with everyone else in the village. It was a beautiful way of existing, a slow, rhythmic lifestyle where every meal was an act of gratitude and every night was an opportunity to reconnect with the tribe before drifting off to sleep. The warmth of the food and the rhythm of the storytelling worked together, calming the nervous system and preparing the ancient mind for a peaceful night of rest under the watchful stars. All stories on this channel, Sleepy History with Benedict, are fictional, thoughtfully crafted around historical themes and inspired by real events, figures and periods, reimagined for engaging storytelling. The content does not represent real individuals, actual events, or documented cases. Any resemblance to real people, animals, or events is purely coincidental. Let us now let those ancient campfires gently fade into the mist of time as we travel forward into the grand, sun-drenched world of classical antiquity. Imagine waking up in a different era, walking through a stone corridor and entering the home of a wealthy Roman aristocrat. The air is cool, scented with dried lavender and burning olive oil. When you enter the dining room known as the triclinium, you do not see chairs arranged around a high wooden table. Instead, you see three large, wide couches arranged in a U shape around a small, beautifully carved central table, and on these couches the guests are not sitting upright. They are reclining. They are lying down on their left sides, propped up by soft wool pillows, their right hands free to reach for food. To the modern eye, this looks like the ultimate depiction of laziness, an incredibly awkward way to consume a meal, but to the Romans this posture was deeply symbolic. It was a physical manifestation of power and freedom. In the Roman world, slaves and children sat upright on hard stools, poor labourers ate standing up in the crowded streets. To lie down while you ate was to announce to the world that you were a citizen of status, someone who had conquered the need to rush, someone who possessed the ultimate luxury, the right to relax. If you're enjoying this peaceful journey through the pages of history tonight, and if you find comfort in these quiet stories before sleep, please take a brief moment to support the channel. By hitting the like button, sharing your thoughts in the comments, or subscribing to Sleepy History with Benedict, you help ensure that our quiet sanctuary continues to grow. Thank you for resting here with me tonight. Now, take a deep breath and let your body sink a little deeper into your own bed, enjoying the very same posture of luxury that the ancient Romans once guarded so fiercely. Let your mind drift deeper into the atmosphere of this ancient Roman dining room, where every single detail, from the position of a pillow to the direction of a guest's gaze, was calculated with immense precision. The triclinium was not merely a place to satisfy hunger, it was a theatre of social status, a physical map of the Roman hierarchy brought to life inside a domestic sanctuary. The three large couches that formed the U-shape around the central serving table were not equal in prestige. Each couch had a specific name and a strict level of importance assigned to it. There was the lectus imus, which was the lowest couch, typically reserved for the host of the dinner and his immediate family members. Then there was the lectus medius, the middle couch which held the highest status of all. And finally, there was the lectus summus, the highest couch physically but the lowest in social rank, usually occupied by clients, less important friends, or dependents who were invited to fill the room. Within each individual couch, the positions were numbered from 1 to 3, creating a highly complex web of micro-statuses. The most important spot in the entire room was position number 3 on the middle couch. This was known as the consular place, or the seat of the guest of honour. It was strategically chosen because it sat directly next to position number 1 on the lowest couch, where the host reclined. This allowed the host and the most powerful man in the room to whisper privately, share the finest delicacies, and look out over the central area of the room where the entertainment would take place. For a Roman citizen, entering a dinner party was an exercise in intense social awareness and quiet anxiety. There were no name cards placed on the cushions, yet everyone was expected to know exactly where they belonged on the social ladder. To walk into a room and mistakenly recline on a cushion above your actual rank was considered an unforgivable social error, a display of arrogance that could ruin a man's reputation in polite society. The ancient writers, such as the poet Horace and the essayist Pliny the Younger, wrote extensively about the quiet, delicate choreography of these evenings. They described the subtle tension that filled the air as guests arrived, dressed in their finest, loose-fitting linen tunics, watching carefully to see who would be placed where. A single shift in seating from a previous dinner could mean a rise in political favour or a devastating public demotion that would be talked about in the forum the very next morning. As you lie in your own room tonight, far removed from the complex pressures of Roman politics, you can appreciate the complete lack of judgment in your own space. There are no ranks here, no statuses to maintain, and no eyes watching where you rest. You are simply free to let go of the day's expectations and enjoy the pure, uncomplicated comfort of your own bed. As the evening progressed in the Roman triclinium, The soft light from bronze oil lamps flickered against the painted frescoes on the walls, casting long dancing shadows across the room. The air grew heavy with the rich, complex aromas of Roman cuisine. To understand the dining habits of this time, one must realize that their palate was entirely different from ours today. They favored intense combinations of sweet, sour, and savory flavors, often drowning their meats in a thick fermented fish sauce known as garum, which was stored in clay amphorae and traded across the entire Mediterranean like liquid gold. Slaves moved silently through the room, stepping carefully between the reclining couches. They carried large silver platters, laden with roasted dormice, glazed with wild honey and poppy seeds, platters of oysters harvested from the cool waters of Britain, and baskets of flat, dark bread. But beneath this display of abundance lay a bitter reality of social division. The quality of the food and wine you were served depended entirely on the cushion you occupied. Pliny the Younger wrote a famous letter describing a dinner party that horrified him. The host, a man of great wealth but little true nobility, served the finest, most delicate dishes and aged sweet wines only to himself and a few select guests on the middle couch. For the lesser guests and the freedmen who sat on the lowest couch, he provided cheap, coarse food and sour wine that had turned nearly to vinegar. When Pliny asked his neighbour how he felt about this humiliation, the man simply shrugged. It was the accepted rhythm of the Roman world. Food was not a bridge to bring people together, it was a wall to keep them in their proper places. Yet as the hours grew late and the heavy jars of wine were emptied, the atmosphere of the room would naturally soften, the political posturing would give way to tiredness. The sound of stringed lyres and poets reciting verses would quiet down, replaced by the rhythmic breathing of guests who had fallen asleep right on their dining couches. The slaves would begin the slow, quiet process of clearing the tables, sweeping away the dropped grape seeds and broken bread crusts from the mosaic floors. Let yourself feel that same transition now. The noise of the world, the distinctions of status, and the need to prove yourself to others are all fading away into the dark. Like the end of an ancient banquet, the decorations of the day are being put away, leaving only a quiet, peaceful space where you can finally close your eyes and let your mind rest completely. Let us now allow the sun-drenched stone villas of Rome to dissolve into the cool, misty air of the medieval world. Centuries have passed, and the ways of the human table have transformed once again. Imagine entering the great hall of a medieval castle in the heart of winter. The walls are made of thick, rough-hewn stone, hung with heavy woolen tapestries to keep out the biting draught. In the centre of the room a massive hearth fire roars, sending smoke swirling up into the high timber rafters, filling the space with the scent of burning oak and roasted pine. In this medieval world, people no longer recline to eat. The luxury of the Roman couch has been forgotten, replaced by a new kind of structure. The tables in the great hall are not permanent fixtures, they are trestle tables, made of long, heavy wooden planks, placed over folding wooden supports. When the meal is over, these tables will be disassembled and cleared away to make room for sleeping pallets on the floor. People sit on long, hard wooden benches arranged in a straight line down the length of the hall. At the far end of the room, raised on a physical wooden platform called a dais, sits the high table. This is where the lord of the castle and his lady sit, looking down upon the rest of the household. From this elevated position, the social order of the medieval estate is made perfectly clear. The most crucial boundary marker on this long line of diners was a simple kitchen object, the salt cellar. Salt was a precious, expensive commodity, and its placement on the table divided the community into two distinct groups: those who sat above the salt, close to the Lord, enjoying white bread and fresh meat, and those who sat below the salt, near the cold doors, eating coarse brown bread and thick grain pottage. If you're finding peace in these ancient tales, and if this slow journey through the history of the human table is helping you unwind tonight, please consider supporting our storytelling journey. Take a gentle moment to hit the subscribe button, leave a thumbs up, or share a comment about your favorite historical period. Your small act of kindness helps Sleepy History with Benedict remain a quiet, calm refuge for everyone seeking a restful night. Thank you for your beautiful support. As the heavy wooden doors of the great hall close against the winter wind, let yourself feel safe and secure within your own modern sanctuary, far away from the rigid lines of medieval castles. Let yourself sink deeper into the sights and textures of the medieval Great Hall, where the customs of eating were profoundly intimate and deeply tied to the concepts of survival and mutual trust. When you look closely at the long wooden trestle tables, you will notice a complete absence of modern ceramic or porcelain plates. Instead, placed in front of each guest is a thick, flat piece of stale, coarse bread known as a trencher. These trenchers were baked days or even weeks in advance, allowed to harden until they were as rigid as wooden boards. Their purpose was not to be eaten, but to act as an absorbent surface for the rich, greasy stews, roasted meats, and thick sauces served during the feast. As the meal progressed, the juices from the meats would slowly soak into the dense bread, softening it. At the end of the banquet, these saturated trenchers were gathered up and either given to the poor waiting at the castle gates or thrown to the hunting hounds sleeping by the hearth fire. It was a dining system where even the plates were a living part of the landscape. Because utensils were scarce, dining in the Middle Ages required a high degree of cooperative etiquette. Fork were completely non-existent in Western Europe at this time, viewed by many church authorities as an unnatural and foreign vanity. Guests brought their own sharp knives to the table, and they ate primarily with their thumb and first two fingers. Because resources were shared, two people would routinely share a single bowl of stew, and a single decorative cup of ale or wine would be passed along the entire bench from person to person. This deep sharing of objects meant that medieval etiquette guides, such as the famous Babee's book, were not about showing off wealth, but about keeping the peace. Guests were strictly instructed not to leave their greasy knives on the shared bread, not to dip their fingers too deeply into the communal salt cellar, and never to wipe their hands on the tablecloth. In a society composed of heavily armed feudal warriors, the rules of the table were designed to build trust. To share a cup, to eat from the same bowl, and to keep your hands clean and visible was a physical demonstration that you came in peace, that you trusted your neighbour not to draw a blade while your head was bowed. As the midnight hour approached, the heavy wooden trestle tables were lifted off their supports and carried out into the courtyard. The great hall transformed once again, its stone floor cleared and covered with fresh straw. The servants and lower-ranked travellers would unroll their wool bedding, lying down in rows before the dying embers of the central hearth, listening to the wind howl through the arrow slits. Let that same sense of quiet resolution settle into your mind right now. The day's interactions, the sharing of spaces, and the efforts to connect with others are now finished. The table is cleared, the room is quiet, and you are perfectly safe within your own space, free to let go of all social roles and drift into an unhurried, peaceful sleep. Let us now watch the flickering torches of the medieval stone hall gently fade away, replaced by the bright, expansive light of the Age of Discovery. We find ourselves entering the opulent dining rooms of the 16th and 17th centuries. The architecture of the home has shifted. The great communal halls of the past have been broken down into smaller, more private spaces designed specifically for intimate gatherings. The air is no longer filled with the scent of coarse wood smoke, but with something entirely new, exotic, and intoxicating, the sharp, sweet aroma of distant spices. During this era, if you sat at the table of a wealthy merchant in Venice, London, or Lisbon, the meal placed before you was a grand display of global dominance. The introduction of spices like black pepper, nutmeg, cinnamon, and cloves completely revolutionized European dining habits. These ingredients did not arrive easily. They traveled thousands of perilous miles across treacherous oceans, passed hand to hand through a vast network of traders, caravans, and ships. By the time a small pouch of cloves reached a kitchen in Western Europe, it was worth more than its weight in pure gold. To use spices generously in your food was the ultimate statement of luxury. Hosts did not simply season their dishes to improve the flavor, they literally smothered their meats, fish, and even their wines in heavy layers of spice to show off their astronomical wealth. A single bowl of highly spiced stew was a physical proof that the master of the house had the financial power to command ships across the globe, reaching into the hidden corners of the earth to bring back treasures for his guests to consume in a single afternoon. If you are enjoying this long, soothing journey through the hidden corners of human history tonight, please take a gentle moment to support our channel before you fall asleep. If you haven't already, hitting the like button, leaving a thoughtful comment about the historical eras you love, or subscribing to Sleepy History with Benedict makes an immense difference in helping us create these peaceful nights. Your beautiful presence and support keep this sanctuary alive. Thank you for resting here with me. As the heavy porcelain plates are set upon the table and the sweet aroma of cinnamon drifts through the air, let your mind relax, knowing that the long journeys of the world are finished for the day and you have arrived safely at your destination. To truly appreciate the incredible nature of these early modern dining habits, let your mind drift across the vast oceans to the actual places where these legendary spices were born. Black pepper grew along the lush, rain-drenched Malabar coast of southwestern India, in a vibrant region known as Kerala. Nutmeg and mace were harvested from a tiny, incredibly remote cluster of volcanic islands in what is now Indonesia, a group of islands so small they barely registered on a map of the world. Cinnamon was stripped by hand from the bark of wild trees in Sri Lanka, while cloves came from only 5 small islands in the Maluku archipelago, famously known as the Spice Islands. For centuries, European merchants had absolutely no idea where these islands were located. They only knew that the spices came from the east, impossibly far to the east. Between the European dining table and those distant islands lay an immense continent controlled by a complex ancient web of Arab traders, Persian merchants, Indian middlemen, and silent desert caravans. Each hand that touched the spice took a cut of its value, driving the price higher and higher with every mile travelled westward. When a small sack of black pepper finally arrived at the busy docks of Venice, it was handled with the same reverence and security as a chest of priceless diamonds. This desperate, unyielding hunger for flavour did not just change what people ate, it literally reshaped the geography of the planet. The desire to bypass the middleman and secure a direct route to these spice-rich kingdoms was the primary force that drove explorers like Vasco da Gama and Christopher Columbus out into the unknown dangerous waters of the open ocean. Every time a wealthy aristocrat sprinkled a dust of nutmeg over his evening meal, he was participating in a global system built on imagination, bravery, and an endless curiosity about the wider world. It was a time when the dinner table was not just a furniture piece, but a mirror reflecting the entire known universe. This content is inspired by and adapted from public domain works available through Project Gutenberg. The material has been transformed through original narration, editing, and storytelling to create a unique experience for educational and entertainment purposes. Let us now watch the vast, storm-tossed oceans of the explorers gently calm, dissolving into the elegant, candle-lit salons of the 18th and 19th centuries. We are entering the age of refinement, a time when the raw displays of power and heavy spices of the past gave way to a delicate, almost poetic precision. The physical geography of the table was changing once again, and with it, the very rhythm of human interaction. It was during this period that an object we now take completely for granted finally secured its permanent place at the table, the individual fork. For generations the fork had been resisted, viewed with deep suspicion as an unnecessary obstacle to the natural act of eating with one's fingers. But as the concept of personal space and individual hygiene evolved, the fork became the ultimate instrument of civil behavior. To use a fork was to demonstrate control over your primal instincts, a commitment to elegance that elevated dining from a biological necessity into a fine art. Along with the fork came a profound revolution in how meals were served. For centuries, wealthy households practiced what was known as service à la française, or French service. In this style, every single dish of the meal, the roasted meats, the soups, the savoury pies, the sweet fruits, was placed on the table all at once in a grand spectacular display. While visually magnificent, it meant that dishes quickly grew cold and guests could only easily reach the food that happened to be sitting directly in front of them. Then a quiet transformation occurred, imported from the East, service à la Russe, or Russian service. In this new system, the table remained beautifully empty, decorated only with fresh flowers, polished silver, and flickering wax candles. The food was kept warm in the kitchen and brought out by servers one course at a time. Sequentially, each guest was served the exact same dish at the exact same moment. This single shift completely altered the emotional landscape of the evening, because guests no longer had to worry about reaching for platters or carve their own meats. Their hands and minds were liberated. The meal slowed down dramatically. It became an unfolding story, a sequence of chapters where each course brought a new flavour and a new wave of conversation. Dining was no longer about showing off what you could conquer. It was about creating a shared temporal experience, a long, unhurried evening where the art of listening was just as important as the art of eating. Let your mind rest deeply in the slow, rhythmic cadence of this 19th century dining room, where the separation between the chaotic outside world and the serene inner sanctuary of the home was guarded with absolute devotion. Under the peaceful regime of Russian service, where courses arrived in soft, predictable intervals, a new philosophy of human connection emerged. The dining table was no longer viewed as a platform to display raw dominance or exotic wealth. It had become a temple for the mind, a dedicated space for the cultivation of the gentle art of conversation. In this era, etiquette guides were no longer written to prevent diners from wiping their greasy fingers on the communal tablecloth or fighting over the salt cellar. Instead, they focused entirely on the psychological and emotional climate of the room. A dinner party was considered successful only if it managed to soothe the spirits of its guests, creating an atmosphere of total safety, intellectual warmth, and mutual respect. The rules governing speech at the table were beautifully designed to keep anxiety and aggression at bay. It was considered a severe social error to bring up topics that could cause distress or deep division among the company. Guests were strictly advised to leave discussions of heavy political conflicts, volatile business matters, personal illnesses, and controversial religious dogmas outside the dining room doors. The table was meant to be an oasis, a neutral ground where the weary mind could step away from the harsh competitive pressures of the industrial world. Instead, conversation was treated like a cooperative game, a soft melody where everyone was given a turn to play. People spoke of art, of the beauty of the natural landscape, of music, literature, and gentle humorous anecdotes from everyday life. The host and hostess acted as silent conductors, subtly guiding the flow of dialogue, ensuring that no single voice dominated the room, and that the more soft-spoken guests were gently drawn into the warmth of the circle. To eat in this manner was to participate in a collective unwinding. As each beautifully arranged course was quietly cleared away by attentive servers, and as the wax candles burned lower in their polished silver holders, the guests experienced a deep, restorative slowing down of their internal clocks. The worries of the marketplace and the urgent demands of time faded into insignificance, replaced by the comforting, predictable rhythm of shared laughter and unhurried thoughts. Let that same beautiful protective boundary encircle your mind right now. Just like the dining rooms of that elegant era, your room tonight is an oasis entirely separate from the demands, the conflicts, and the noisy debates of the modern world. You do not have to solve any problems here. You do not have to defend any opinions or prove your worth to anyone. The doors are closed, the light is soft, and you are free to let your mind drift into the quiet, uncomplicated safety of a world at rest. Let us now watch those candle-lit 19th century salons quietly fade as the long, soft shadows of history carry us into the early decades of the 20th century. We find ourselves walking along the cobblestone streets of Paris and the quiet neighbourhoods of small European towns at dusk. The world outside is beginning to speed up. Trains are moving faster, factories are humming, and the modern era is announcing itself with the blink of the first electric streetlights. Yet inside the small bistros, neighborhood cafes, and modest family kitchens, the human table remains an unyielding fortress of slowness and peace. In this era, dining habits shifted away from the grand performative banquets of kings and aristocrats towards something much more intimate, accessible, and deeply personal. Imagine sitting at a small round wooden table in a Parisian cafe as the evening air turns cool. There is no velvet drapery, no silver salt cellars, and no army of servants. Instead, there is a simple linen napkin, a thick ceramic bowl of warm onion soup, a crusty loaf of bread, and a small carafe of house wine. The luxury of this period was not found in the price of the ingredients, but in the stubborn preservation of time. People refused to be rushed by the changing world. They would sit at the same small table for hours, watching the twilight deepen into night, tearing bread with their hands, and speaking in low, murmuring tones. The meal was a deliberate pause button pressed against the acceleration of modern life. It was a shared understanding that no matter how fast the world outside was moving, the act of sitting down to eat required a sacred, unhurried space. Inside family homes, this same devotion to the rhythm of the table was maintained through generations. The preparation of food was a slow, meditative daily ritual. Soups were left to simmer on iron stoves for half a day, filling the rooms with a steady, comforting warmth that promised safety and stability to everyone who crossed the threshold. When the family gathered at night, the dinner table became the place where the fragments of the day were brought together, healed and laid to rest through the simple magic of a shared loaf of bread. As you rest in the quiet sanctuary of your own room tonight, let your mind dwell on this beautiful, stubborn human tradition of slowing down. Across every single century we have visited, through every transformation from the ancient fire to the quiet cafe, the table has always been our way of saying that some things must never be rushed. We are creatures who need warmth, who need connection, and who need to slow our steps before we can truly rest. The night is deep now, the streets outside are quiet, the lights of the old cafes are turning off one by one, and the world is settling into a profound, unbroken silence. The stories of the past are resting, hovering gently in the air around you, casting a protective blanket of peace over your thoughts as you prepare to cross the threshold into the world of dreams. Let yourself sink even deeper into the heavy, comforting stillness of the night, allowing the memories of all the tables we have visited to gently intertwine in your mind. When we look back across the vast landscape of human history, we begin to realize that the evolution of dining habits was never truly about the food itself. It was about the stubborn, beautiful ways we find to become real to one another. Whether it was our earliest ancestors sharing a roasted root around a crackling fire in the African savannah, a Roman politician carefully navigating his place on a velvet cushion, or a medieval knight sharing his wooden bowl with a stranger, the underlying hunger was always the same. It was a hunger for presence. In a world that has always found ways to be unpredictable, harsh, and fast-moving, the table has remained our most enduring invention, a small intentional island of predictability and peace. Think of how remarkable it is that despite thousands of years of technological progress, we still gather around a flat surface to eat. We no longer use hardened bread as plates, and we rarely recline on our left sides for 3 hours to drink wine. Yet the emotional geography of the meal has not changed a single bit. The table is still the place where we put down our weapons, where we lower our defenses, and where we look at each other, not as competitors or strangers, but simply as fellow human beings who are tired, hungry, and seeking warmth. In our contemporary lives, it is incredibly easy to be everywhere except exactly where we are. We are constantly connected to distant places, flooded with information, and nudged to remain productive at all hours of the day and night. Against this relentless current, the dinner table makes a demand that is quietly radical. It asks you to stay. It asks you to arrive completely in this specific room, with these particular people, eating this simple food on this exact evening. It asks you to give up the need to be on your way somewhere else, even if it is just for one single hour. As you lie completely relaxed in your bed right now, feel the profound weight of that ancient invitation. The long day is fully behind you. There are no more tasks to complete, no more schedules to maintain, and no more roles to play. You have stepped away from the busy marketplace of life and returned to the quiet sanctuary of the dark. The conversations of the world have quieted down, the fires have burned down to beautiful warm embers, and the long, slow rhythm of history is gently rocking your mind into a state of total, unhurried peace. The air around you is perfectly still, filled with the soft, protective memories of a million warm rooms and shared tables that came before us. You are safe, you are warm, and you are exactly where you need to be. Let your thoughts become as light as drifting smoke, floating effortlessly over the ancient empires and quiet villages of the past, as you linger here in the beautiful, soft twilight between waking and the endless world of peaceful dreams. Let your breath slow down even further, matching the deep, ancient rhythm of the earth as it turns away from the sun. Inside this quiet space, let us contemplate the beautiful relationship between the ending of a meal and the beginning of a deep, restorative sleep. Across almost every historical era we have explored tonight, the final meal of the day was always followed by a profound, collective quietness, a natural fading of light and sound that prepared the human body for rest. In the old days, when the last plates were cleared and the remaining wine was poured, there was no sudden transition back to work. There were no bright electronic screens to trick the brain into thinking it was still daytime, and no artificial demands to keep the mind racing. Instead, the natural darkness of the night was allowed to do its gentle work. The physical body, nourished by warm food, would begin the quiet internal process of digestion, sending a soft wave of tiredness through the limbs and calming the nervous system from the day's exertions. This physiological slowing down was mirrored by a psychological release. As the embers of the hearth fire glowed a deep, soft red, the people of the past would sit in the dimming light, letting their thoughts drift aimlessly. They would listen to the wind outside the walls, the steady breathing of their loved ones, or the slow ticking of a wooden clock. In these unhurried moments, the mind learned to let go of its heavy armor. The boundaries between memory, reality, and imagination would begin to soften, creating a beautiful, safe bridge into the world of dreams. Think of how beautiful that transition is to eat, is to accept life, to nourish the body so that it may continue its journey, and to sleep is to trust the world, to close your eyes and believe that you will be kept safe through the long hours of the dark. When you bring these two things together, the satisfaction of a meal and the peace of a quiet room, you are participating in the ultimate form of self-care, a ritual that has sustained our species for thousands of generations. As you rest in your own bed tonight, let that same ancient trust wash over you. Your body is warm, your surroundings are secure, and the night is completely peaceful. You do not need to carry the weight of tomorrow's worries into this sacred space of rest. The tables of history are still. The fires have burned down to a gentle warmth, and the world is holding its breath, waiting for you to simply let go and drift away into a deep, uninterrupted slumber. Let yourself float a little further into the deep, dark sea of evening, paying attention to the profound silence that eventually claims every dining room and kitchen after the human guests have departed. There is a specific kind of peace that settles over a house when the last candle has been snuffed out, and the only light remaining is the soft silver glow of the moon slipping through the window pane. Think of the kitchen in the deep hours of the night, a place that was once so full of heat, movement, and the vibrant clatter of life. The copper pots hung neatly from iron hooks on the wall are now cool to the touch, catching the faint starlight on their polished surfaces. The heavy oak cutting boards, scored with the faint lines of 1,000 meals, prepared with care, rest quietly on the stone counters. The silver spoons and porcelain cups sit undisturbed in their dark cabinets, their long day of service completely finished. In this midnight stillness, the room itself seems to breathe a sigh of relief, absorbing the residual warmth of the daytime fires and holding it close within the stone walls. This stillness is not empty, it is full of the quiet satisfaction of a task well done, a community fed, and a family gathered and protected. It is the very architecture of security, an ancient guarantee that no matter how chaotic the world outside might become, the center of the home remains a place of profound nourishment and unbroken peace. As you lie there in the deep quiet of your own environment, allow your mind to mirror this beautiful post-dinner stillness. Like the kitchen after the feast, your mind can now let go of the heat and noise of preparation. The thoughts that were jumping and racing throughout the day are now slowing down, settling into their proper places like dishes returned to their shelves. You do not need to mix any more ingredients, you do not need to stoke any more fires, and you do not need to serve anyone else tonight. The room around you has accepted the night, and it is inviting you to do the exact same thing. Let your muscles grow heavier with every soft breath you take, sinking deeper and deeper into the mattress. The long line of human history is stretching out behind you, a vast comforting tapestry of warm hearths and sleepy villages, all resting beneath the very same night sky that looks down upon you right now. You are perfectly detached from the waking world, balanced safely on the edge of a deep, beautiful sleep. Let your mind drift gently toward the windows of those ancient dining rooms, looking past the flickering candle flame and out into the vast changing landscape of the natural world. For the greater part of our history, the way humans ate was not determined by global markets or convenience stores, but by the slow, beautiful turning of the seasons. The dinner table was a perfect mirror of the earth's natural heartbeat, rising and falling in perfect harmony with the sun and the soil. In the golden weeks of late autumn, the tables of ancient villages and medieval castles alike would groan under the weight of the harvest. There were deep baskets of dark purple grapes, heavy wooden bowls filled with wild walnuts and hazelnuts, and platters of slow-roasted root vegetables sweet from the first frost. The air inside the rooms was celebratory, thick with the aroma of freshly pressed cider and rich grain breads. It was a time of abundance, a period when the collective anxiety of winter was pushed away by the sheer generosity of the land. But as the deep cold of winter settled over the world, the dining habits transformed into something much more quiet, internal and meditative. The large, boisterous feasts disappeared, replaced by the profound simplicity of winter comfort. Families gathered tightly around the hearth, drawing their stools as close to the fire as possible. The meals became minimalist yet deeply satisfying, a single steaming kettle of potato and cabbage soup, or a simple plate of salted fish and dark, dense rye bread that had to be dipped into warm broth to soften. There was a unique, comforting beauty to those winter tables, because the world outside was frozen and dead. The life inside the home became concentrated, focused entirely on the small circle of light cast by the fireplace. The scarcity of food did not breed fear. Instead, it elevated the value of every single crumb. To share a small piece of cheese or a warm cup of herbal tea in the dead of winter was an act of profound love and mutual survival. It taught human beings to find immense gratitude in the smallest of things, to appreciate the luxury of a warm bowl when the blizzard was howling right outside the door. Let that same winter security settle into your spirit right now. Even if the world outside your room is busy, fast, or cold, your space tonight is a fortified sanctuary of warmth and comfort. You have everything you need to be perfectly at peace in this moment. The harvest of your day is completely done, the tools are put away, and the natural world is inviting you to hibernate, to slow your breathing, and to let your consciousness sink into the deep, protective stillness of a winter night. Let your awareness drift downward now, focusing on the soft, tactile surfaces that have cradled our meals across the long span of centuries. Think of the quiet revolution that occurred when humanity decided to cover the hard, rough edges of their wooden tables with fabrics, most notably the pristine white linen tablecloth. In the elegant dining rooms of the 18th and 19th centuries, the laying of the linen was a sacred ritual, a silent announcement that the space was now prepared for peace. These tablecloths were woven from natural flax washed in fresh river water and dried under the open sun until they held the clean, comforting scent of the summer wind. When a servant unrolled a large sheet of fine white linen across a long mahogany table, the transformation was immediate. The dark, heavy wood disappeared, replaced by a smooth, bright landscape that seemed to capture and reflect the soft glow of the wax candles. The sharp clatter of metal utensils against wood was suddenly muffled, turned into a series of gentle, reassuring sounds that did not disturb the calm of the room. The white tablecloth acted as a profound psychological boundary. It was a physical manifestation of purity and safety, a soft barrier that declared that the dirt, the dust, and the chaotic struggles of the outside world were strictly forbidden from crossing into this space. To sit at a table covered in clean white linen was to step into a clean slate, a small zone of perfection where you could leave your weary history at the door and simply enjoy the present moment. The fabric invited the hands to rest softly, encouraging the shoulders to drop and the body to fully surrender to the comforting rhythm of the evening. Let that same soft, protective layer envelop your mind right now. Just like the clean linen of those historic tables, your sheets tonight offer a pristine boundary between you and the worries of the day that has just passed. The friction of the world, the rough edges of daily responsibilities, and the noise of your tasks are all covered over, hidden away in the dark. There is nothing left for you to touch except the absolute smoothness of comfort, nothing for you to breathe except the clean air of a room at rest. Your mind is free to let go of its heavy texturing, becoming as smooth, calm, and undisturbed as a white fabric beneath the quiet moonlight. Let your thoughts gently drift to the soft, pale light of a quiet morning after a long week of labor. While our journey tonight has focused primarily on the rich, protective shadows of the evening meal, there is another dining habit from the past that carries a unique, profound sense of peace, the slow, unhurried breakfast of a day of rest. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, for the working people of the world, this meal was a rare, cherished island of pure liberty. During the long, demanding work week, breakfast was an efficient, mechanical affair, a quick piece of bread swallowed in the dark before rushing out to the fields, the docks, or the factories as the morning whistle blew. But when the day of rest arrived, the entire architecture of time dissolved. People stayed in their comfortable beds a little longer, listening to the birds chirp outside the window and watching the golden sunbeams crawl slowly across the wooden floorboards. When they finally gathered around the kitchen table, there was no rush, no pressure, and no urgent schedule waiting to be met. The teapot was covered in a thick wool cozy, keeping the dark, fragrant brew warm for hours. The bread was sliced thickly and toasted slowly over the dying embers of the hearth, its crust catching the rich flavour of the wood. People sat in their loose, comfortable morning clothes, reading the weekly newspaper, sharing quiet observations about the weather, or simply sitting in a beautiful shared silence. There was a profound healing power to those slow mornings. The food on the plate was often simple, perhaps just a few fresh eggs, a pat of sweet cream butter, and a jar of homemade plum jam, but the true luxury was the total absence of a deadline. It was a time when human beings allowed themselves to simply exist, to taste their food completely, and to let their minds wander without any destination. It was a gentle reminder that we are not made just for constant production, but for the quiet appreciation of existence itself. Let that same beautiful absence of pressure settle into your chest right now. You do not have to wake up early for any task in this moment. The entire night stretches out before you like a vast, calm ocean of time, completely free of obligations, deadlines, or demands. You have arrived at your own personal day of rest. Let your body sink deeply into the mattress, embracing the absolute freedom of doing nothing at all, as your mind drifts peacefully in the soft, warm currents of a world completely at rest. Let your mind float up now, rising gently above the specific rooms and eras we have visited, to look at the grand, quiet tapestry of time itself. Imagine watching the entire globe from a peaceful distance as the shadow of night sweeps across the continents. See how it extinguishes the bright fires of the ancient savannah, cools the stone hearths of medieval castles, and dims the soft oil lamps of Roman villas. One by one, every single table we have studied tonight slips into the identical beautiful darkness of the midnight hour. In this deep state of rest, all the divisions of history begin to fade away. It no longer matters whether a person ate from a silver platter or a hardened piece of trencher bread. It no longer matters if they sat above the salt or below the salt, or if they dined in a lavish palace or a humble stone hut. In the eyes of the night, every single human being becomes equal once again. We all return to the same fundamental state of vulnerability, trust, and quiet surrender as we close our eyes and allow ourselves to be carried away by the dark. The long story of the human table is ultimately a story of coming home. It is a reminder that no matter how complex our societies become, our deepest needs remain beautifully simple: warmth, nourishment, connection, and rest. Every night for thousands of years, our ancestors finished their meals, cleared away the remnants of their days, and lay down to sleep, trusting that the world would still be there when they woke. You are now a part of that endless, unbroken chain of human rest. The day's history is fully written, the pages are closed, and there is nothing more for you to think about, analyze, or remember. The air in your room is soft and cool, your body is weightless and completely relaxed, and the steady, rhythmic rise and fall of your chest is the only sound remaining in your universe. Let the thoughts of the past dissolve into the gentle, misty edges of your mind. Let yourself grow heavier and heavier, sinking down through the soft layers of comfort as the ancient peace of 1,000 generations wraps around you like a warm blanket. You are drifting now, floating effortlessly away from the waking world, safe, secure, and beautifully prepared to enter the deep, dreamless quiet of a perfect night's sleep. Let the last remaining images of our long journey gently dissolve, like soft smoke rising into the midnight air and disappearing into the stars. The ancient campfires, the grand Roman halls, the medieval trestles, and the quiet 20th century cafes have all played their parts, and now they softly recede into the background of your mind, leaving behind only a deep, unbroken stillness. Think of the very last ember of a fireplace as it loses its bright orange glow, turning into a soft, velvety grey ash. It does not fight the darkness, it simply lets go of its heat, cooling down in perfect compliance with the night. In that exact same way, let your mind release the very last threads of active thought. You no longer need to visualize the past. You no longer need to follow the timeline of history, and you no longer need to listen to the meaning of individual words. The story has done its work. It has built a sturdy, quiet wall between you and the busy, demanding world outside. It has reminded you that you are part of a long, beautiful tradition of human beings who have worked, gathered, eaten, and then safely laid themselves down to rest. You are now fully enclosed within that protective circle of time. Feel the profound weightlessness that comes when you completely stop trying to hold on to reality. Your breath is a slow, shallow wave, moving in and out like the quiet tide of a calm ocean. Your body is so deeply relaxed that it feels almost as if it is merging with the bed beneath you, floating in a warm, dark space where gravity no longer applies. There is no past to look back on, no future to prepare for, and no present moment to analyze. There is only this vast, dark, beautiful quiet. Let yourself drift further and further out into that peaceful void. The world is asleep, the history of the day is finished, and you are standing at the very edge of a deep, restorative slumber, ready to let go of the last conscious shore. Let your breath become as faint and gentle as the rustle of leaves in the deepest hours of the night. As we linger in this beautiful twilight, look out once more into the natural world that has stood guard outside every dining room window throughout history. The earth requires no tables, no silver, and no strict rules of etiquette to find its rest. It simply yields to the turning of the cosmos. Imagine the wide-open fields surrounding the ancient villages, now completely bathed in a cold silver dew. The great oaks and silent pines stand like ancient sentinels under the star-filled sky, their branches perfectly still, no longer reaching for the sun, but simply resting in the dark. The wild creatures have burrowed deep into the earth or curled tightly in their nests, their hearts beating in a slow, synchronized rhythm with the sleeping planet. There is no ambition in the forest tonight, no urgency in the valleys, and no passage of time in the quiet meadows. This deep, natural submission to the night is entering your room right now, slipping through the quiet spaces and settling softly onto your pillow. You have stepped entirely out of the stream of human history. The centuries we walked through have closed their heavy iron doors, and the modern world has turned off its noisy machinery. There are no more dates to remember, no more cultures to study, and no more human habits to understand. You are returning to a state of pure, uncomplicated being. Your body knows exactly what to do. It recognizes the ancient, welcoming call of the dark. With every slow exhalation, feel yourself shedding the last microscopic layers of tension from your forehead, your jaw, and your shoulders. You are sinking, drifting, and dissolving into the soft velvet fabric of the night, beautifully poised on the absolute threshold of an endless peaceful sleep. Let your awareness grow even lighter now, like a single leaf detaching from a branch in the autumn woods and floating slowly, effortlessly down to the soft earth below. We have reached the place where all paths meet, the quiet point of absolute surrender, where even the story itself begins to softly dissolve into the dark. Think of the countless fires we have watched tonight, from the roaring logs of medieval baronial halls to the small, efficient gas burners of 20th century kitchens. Every single one of those flames eventually did what all fires must do. It slowly lowered its head, consumed its final fuel, and quietly went out. And in the space where the flame once danced, there is no sadness, no regret, and no emptiness, only a deep, comforting coolness and the beautiful, heavy darkness that is the natural resting state of the world. Your mind is now like that cooled hearth. The heat of thinking, the sparks of imagination, and the bright light of curiosity have all naturally burned themselves out over the course of our long journey. You have travelled through thousands of years, crossed oceans, and sat at the tables of emperors and peasants alike. You have seen how humanity has always found a way to create warmth, to find safety, and to share the simple blessings of existence. There is nothing left to seek, nothing left to discover, and nothing left to understand. The history of the world is safely put away in its heavy stone vaults, and your own personal history for the day is fully completed. A profound sense of gratitude is all that remains, a soft, quiet thankfulness for the warmth of your bed, the safety of your room, and the beautiful privilege of a quiet mind at the end of a long day. Let yourself sink into the deepest layers of that gratitude. Do not try to hold on to these final words. Let them become just a gentle hum, a soothing vibration that rocks you further and further away from the waking shore. The night is complete, the darkness is total, and you are floating safely, peacefully into the beautiful, endless quiet of a deep and dreamless sleep. Let yourself float now into that beautiful, formless space where the lines between waking and dreaming begin to completely blur. The historical worlds we have explored tonight, the spice ships navigating the vast oceans, the grand marble dining halls of Rome, the cosy kitchens of small European towns are no longer solid places. They have transformed into soft, pale shadows, drifting lazily through the quiet corridors of your mind like morning mist rising off a calm lake. In this state of deep relaxation, you are no longer an observer trying to follow a story. You are simply a consciousness drifting in perfect harmony with the night. The concepts of time, of centuries passing, and of human habits have lost all their weight. It no longer matters where the journey began or how far we have travelled. All that exists is the smooth velvet weight of your eyelids, the cool touch of the air on your skin, and the profound, unbroken safety of this exact moment. Think of a boat that has finally reached the quiet waters of a protected harbour after a long, storm-tossed journey across the sea. The sails are lowered, the anchor is dropped into the deep, soft mud below, and the hull rests perfectly still, gently cradled by the slow, rhythmic rocking of the dark water. The vast, unpredictable ocean is still out there, but inside the harbour there is only absolute stillness, security, and peace. Your mind has arrived at that very same harbour tonight. The long, busy voyage of the day is over. The demands of your attention have all been released, floating away like autumn leaves carried down a slow river. You do not have to hold on to your identity, your responsibilities, or your plans for tomorrow. You are entirely free to let go of the shore, to let yourself dissolve into the deep, comforting dark, and to trust that the universe will hold you in perfect safety until the light returns. Let your breathing slow down to the faintest whisper, a quiet rhythm that echoes the eternal stillness of the stars above. You are heavy, you are warm, and you are beautifully slipping away into the soft, boundless ocean of a deep, restorative sleep. Let go of the very last anchor holding your mind to the conscious world. We have reached the deep, quiet waters where even the softest echoes of language begin to lose their meaning. The words you hear are no longer a narrative to follow, but simply a gentle, repetitive melody, a slow wave of sound designed to cradle your spirit as you sink into the dark. Imagine a vast, silent library at midnight, where all the great histories of the world, all the stories of feasts, empires, and human journeys are bound in heavy leather volumes, resting quietly on their dark wooden shelves. The doors are locked, the lamps are out, and the knowledge inside those pages is resting, no longer needing to be read, analysed, or understood. Everything that has ever happened, everything that has ever been built or eaten or spoken of, has safely settled into the permanent archive of the past. Your mind is now entering that same beautiful state of rest. The ledger of your day is fully written, and the ink has completely dried. There are no more lines to add, no more corrections to make, and no more chapters to plan. You are allowed to completely resign from the task of thinking. You are allowed to let your identity fade into the background, becoming as light and formless as the night wind moving through the dark valleys. Feel the profound physical heavying of your body as you give up the final ounce of control. Your feet, your hands, your limbs, and your mind are all sinking downward, beautifully surrendered to the soft, welcoming embrace of your bed. The entire universe tonight is a sanctuary of silence, a great, dark, protective blanket that has wrapped itself around the earth for billions of years, promising safety to everything that rests beneath it. You are safe. You are warm. You are entirely forgotten by the busy demands of the waking world, and you are completely remembered by the quiet peace of the night. Let yourself drift further down into that warm, boundless space, floating effortlessly on the very edge of a deep, unbroken and beautiful slumber. Let your consciousness drift into the absolute thinnest layer of the waking world, where the material universe begins to lose its solid shape and becomes as light as a shadow. Every house we have visited tonight, every kitchen that has ever fed a tired soul, has eventually reached this very hour, the hour of perfect, undisturbed vacuum, where the day is completely gone and the morrow does not yet exist. In this deep sanctuary of the night, even the quietest sounds of the house settle down into nothingness. The structural timber of the floors ceases its faint creaking, adjusting to the cool night air. The glass in the windows rests silently against the dark frame, looking out into the starry void. The air itself stops moving, becoming a warm, stagnant pool of tranquility that wraps around you, shielding you from the passage of hours. Time has no authority in this room. It has stepped aside to let you simply rest. You are no longer a person with a name, a schedule, or a history. You are just a peaceful breath, a soft heartbeat, a quiet witness to the immense healing power of the dark. The grand tapestry of dining habits, the kings on their couches, the travellers sharing bread by the hearth, they have all dissolved into a singular beautiful feeling of total safety. They have left behind a legacy of comfort, an ancient guarantee that it is safe to close your eyes, safe to let go of the world, and safe to trust the silence. Let yourself slide over the remaining edge of awareness. Do not try to catch the meaning of these sentences. Just let the cadence of the voice act as a slow, rhythmic lullaby, pushing you gently farther and farther away from the shores of thought. Your mind is completely clear, as dark and smooth as a midnight sky without a single cloud. You are floating heavy and weightless all at once, sinking effortlessly into the deep, sweet valleys of an unbroken sleep. Let the very last boundary of your waking mind gently open, dissolving like a single drop of water falling into a vast, still and silent ocean. We have reached the final courtyard of the night, the place where all images fade, all sounds grow distant, and the history of the world softly surrenders its heavy crown to the dark. Imagine a single slender wax candle that has burned faithfully through the long evening on an old oak table. It has illuminated the shared bread, caught the warm smiles of loved ones, and cast long dancing shadows on the stone walls. But now its wick has naturally grown short. The flame sinks down into the warm liquid wax, flickering one last time with a gentle soft light, and then it quietly goes out. There is no sudden coldness, no rush of smoke. There is only the beautiful, instantaneous return of a pure, velvety darkness that feels as natural and protective as a mother's embrace. Your mind is now that quiet room after the candle has gone out. The stage of history is empty. The long tables are cleared, and the guests have all gone home to their own quiet dreams. You are left in the magnificent healing custody of the midnight hour. You have no more roles to perform, no more thoughts to guide, and no more words to interpret. The silence around you is absolute, a profound and sacred space that has been prepared just for you to wash away the fatigue of the world. Let yourself sink completely into that soft, dark vacuum. Feel the ultimate weightlessness of your spirit as it detaches from the heavy anchor of the day. You are drifting now, floating effortlessly on a slow, dark river of pure peace, leaving the waking shore farther and farther behind you. Your breathing is an barely perceptible whisper, a soft sigh of relief that blends perfectly with the eternal quiet of the universe. You are warm, you are safe, and you are beautifully, completely ready to let go. Let the world fade away until it is nothing more than a faint, distant memory, floating somewhere far beyond the edges of this peaceful room. We have passed through the gates of time, through the centuries of human gathering, and we have arrived at the very heart of the night, a place where the clock completely stops and the universe holds its breath. Think of the tiny microscopic dust motes that danced in the warm sunlight of those historic dining rooms throughout the day. Now, in the deep hours of midnight, even they have completely settled onto the polished surfaces of the wood and stone. There is no movement left in the air, no vibration in the walls, and no echo of the voices that laughed and talked hours ago. Every physical object has surrendered its active energy, entering a state of pure, undisturbed meditation. The house is completely at rest, and the earth beneath it is holding you in its ancient, steady grip. Your mind is now mirroring this absolute stillness. The thoughts that were drifting like light clouds are now thinning out, disappearing into the vast, dark sky of your consciousness. You do not need to hold on to the memory of the Roman banquets, the medieval fires, or the quiet 20th century kitchens. Let them all slip away, falling gently into the background like the final notes of a long, beautiful symphony that has reached its natural conclusion. There is nothing left for you to do, nothing left for you to remember, and nothing left for you to be. You are simply a quiet presence, resting in the deep, warm folds of a perfect sanctuary. Feel the incredible lightness of your forehead, the total relaxation of your jaw, and the deep, heavy comfort that has taken over your entire body. You are completely detached from the waking world, floating weightlessly into the soft, velvet dark of a deep and beautiful slumber. Let yourself drift deeper and deeper into that soft velvet space where even the voice telling the story begins to blend with the natural silence of your room. There are no more journeys to take, no more rooms to visit, and no more histories to unfold. We have arrived at the final quiet destination of the night. Imagine the grand eternal night sky that has looked down upon every single generation of humans since the beginning of time. It is a vast dark blanket woven from absolute peace, covering the entire earth in a silent promise of rest. Under this sky, all tables are dark, all fires are still, and every tired mind is allowed to simply let go. You are a part of this beautiful universal stillness. You are connected to the deep, steady rhythm of a planet at rest. Feel the final boundaries of your thoughts softening and fading away. The words you hear are just a gentle vibration, a warm wave of sound rocking you farther and farther away from the waking world. Your body is heavy, warm, and perfectly safe. Your mind is calm, open, and completely clear. Like a still lake reflecting the quiet stars above, there is nothing left to hold on to, nothing left to think about, and nothing left to do. You are fully protected in this sanctuary of the night. Let the remaining light of awareness softly go out, like a distant star disappearing behind a gentle cloud. Let yourself sink downward, floating effortlessly into the deep, sweet, and endless ocean of a perfect, dreamless sleep. Let everything dissolve now. Let the walls of the room, the texture of the sheets, and the very sound of these words fade into a gentle, distant hum that lives on the absolute edge of your hearing. You have walked a long, beautiful path through the quiet dining rooms of the past, and now the path itself is softly vanishing into the dark. Think of a single microscopic drop of dew hanging from a leaf over a vast, perfectly still mountain lake in the dead of night. The air is holding its breath. The drop grows heavy, detaches and falls through the dark sky, slipping into the black water below without making a single sound. The small ripples expand outward, growing wider and thinner until the surface of the lake becomes perfectly flat, perfectly smooth, and perfectly silent once again. Your mind is that smooth, silent lake tonight. Every thought that has crossed your consciousness today has fully expanded and disappeared, leaving behind a surface that reflects nothing but the pure, undisturbed dark of the night sky. You do not need to think, you do not need to listen. You do not need to be aware of the passage of time. The hours are moving forward without you, and that is exactly as it should be. Your body has become incredibly light, as if it is made of nothing but shadow and starlight, floating effortlessly in a warm, protective vacuum. You are completely insulated from the waking world, safe within the ancient, eternal rhythm of human rest. Let the darkness take full possession of your awareness. Give yourself over entirely to the deep, heavy, and beautiful gravity of the dark, drifting down, down, into a perfect and endless sleep. Let your mind drift even deeper now, moving quietly away from the empty dining tables and stepping down into the cool, silent, and deeply protective spaces that lay beneath the grand manor houses and ancient stone dwellings of the past. Think of the old pantry rooms, the underground cellars, and the heavy timbered storehouses where the nourishment of entire communities was kept safe through the long dark of the winter months. In the modern world, we rarely think about where our sustenance rests. But in the centuries that came before us, these rooms were the very heart of human security, sanctuaries of quiet abundance that filled the soul with a profound, unspoken peace. Imagine walking down a flight of smooth, cool stone steps into one of these ancient cellars in the middle of the night. The air down here is perfectly still, holding a constant, comforting coolness and the rich, earthy aromas of the land. There are no windows here, no flickering candles, and no passage of time. There is only a deep, velvety darkness that has remained undisturbed for hours. As you look into the shadows, you can sense the incredible weight of preparation and safety that fills this space. Along the massive stone walls, heavy wooden shelves stretch out into the dark, burdened with the quiet wealth of the autumn harvest. There are massive stoneware jars filled to the brim with thick golden summer honey, its sweetness locked away and preserved for years to come. Next to them sit heavy clay amphorae, overflowing with rich, fragrant olive oil pressed from the groves of the south, and large wooden crates packed with clean, dry sand where sweet carrots, earthy beets, and rugged potatoes rest as quietly as if they were still buried in the fertile soil outside. From the dark oak rafters above, long braids of dried garlic, wild onions and aromatic herbs hang down, releasing a faint soothing perfume into the cool air, a scent that signals to the deep subconscious that the home is fully provisioned, fully protected and entirely prepared for any storm. Further back in the cool shadows rest the heavy wooden barrels of wine and cider, their thick staves held together by rusted iron hoops. Inside the dark wood, the liquid rests in total stillness, aging slowly, turning the sunlight of past summers into a rich, warming comfort for the future. There is no urgency in this cellar, no rush, and no anxiety. The labour of the year is entirely complete. The fields outside are empty and frozen beneath the moonlight, but down here the fruit of that labour is locked away in perfect safety, untouched by the frost, untouched by the wind, and completely hidden from the busy demands of the world above. The human mind carries an ancient, deeply rooted memory of these rooms. For thousands of years, knowing that the storehouse was full was the ultimate prerequisite for true, deep rest. It was the signal that allowed the nervous system to finally stand down, letting go of the constant anxiety of survival. Tonight, let your own subconscious mind step into that absolute security. You do not need to worry about the provisions for tomorrow. You do not need to calculate your resources, and you do not need to stress over the tasks that lie ahead. Your personal storehouse is completely full. The efforts of your day have been gathered, sorted, and safely locked away in the archives of the past. You are fully provided for, you are entirely safe, and there is absolutely nothing left for you to protect. Feel that profound sense of completion settling into the very center of your chest, expanding with every slow, deliberate breath you take. Your body is becoming as heavy and settled as those ancient stone jars, sinking deep into the mattress with a beautiful, total release of weight. The air in your room is cool and protective, acting as your own personal sanctuary of peace. Let the details of the silent cellar fade into the dark, leaving behind only the pure, comforting knowledge that you have everything you need to be perfectly at peace in this moment. You are drifting now, floating away from the waking shore, sinking effortlessly down into the deep, dark and boundless ocean of a perfect night's rest. Let your awareness drift further now, expanding gently outward from the cool, silent cellars and stepping into a world of glass, moonlight, and sleeping green life. Imagine walking through the quiet grounds of an elegant 18th century estate in the deepest hours of the night, approaching a grand conservatory or orangery. These magnificent glass structures were built by the craftsmen of old to protect exotic, fragile plants from the harsh, biting cold of the northern winters. At midnight, when the estate is fully asleep, the orangery transforms into a mystical, slow-breathing sanctuary, a miniature world where time seems to slow down to match the deep, invisible rhythm of growing leaves and resting roots. As you step through the heavy cast-iron doors, the first thing that welcomes you is a profound, comforting shift in the atmosphere. The sharp, freezing air of the outside world is instantly replaced by a soft, enveloping warmth, a gentle humidity that smells of damp earth, terracotta clay, and the clean, sweet fragrance of resting citrus leaves. High above you, the massive arched ceiling of glass panes looks up into the starry infinite, completely frosted over with a delicate layer of night mist. The silver moonlight filters down through the misted glass, casting long, pale, dreamlike shadows across the smooth stone pathways and bathing the entire interior in a soft, ethereal glow that feels completely separate from the reality of the waking world. All around you, in beautiful, orderly rows, large wooden tubs and beautifully weathered terracotta pots hold the sleeping treasures of the garden. Here the dark green leaves of lemon and orange trees hang perfectly still, their branches heavy with unripened fruit that glows like pale, soft jade under the lunar light. The trees are not striving, they are not competing for sunlight, and they are not rushing to blossom. They have entered a state of pure, quiet existence, drawing deep nourishment from the rich, warm soil beneath them and breathing the sheltered air of their glass dome. Along the stone benches, small pots of aromatic herbs, sweet rosemary, Delicate lavender and peppery thyme have tightly closed their tiny petals for the night, releasing only a faint, soothing whisper of their essential oils into the dark. A fragrance so subtle and calming that it acts as a natural balm for a weary mind. There is a beautiful protective duality inside this glass sanctuary. Outside, the winter wind may howl through the barren trees, and the frost may harden the open fields. But inside these walls of glass, the climate is perfectly curated, perfectly stable, and completely safe. The fragile life within does not have to fight the elements. It is entirely insulated, shielded by the architectural wisdom of those who built this shelter. The plants can simply be. They can rest in the dark, confident that the warmth will remain, that the glass will hold, and that the morning will bring exactly what they need when the time is right. Let your own mind find its place within this beautiful climate-controlled sanctuary tonight. Your bedroom is your personal orangery, a space designed specifically to keep the harshness, the coldness, and the chaotic noise of the outside world completely at bay. The worries of your daily life, the cold winds of responsibility, and the demanding schedules that exhaust your energy are all locked outside the glass. Inside your sanctuary, there is only warmth, absolute safety, and a quiet space meant for your recovery. You do not need to produce anything tonight. You do not need to grow, and you do not need to prepare for the summer ahead. Like the sleeping lemon trees beneath the moonlit glass, you're allowed to simply exist in a state of quiet, effortless being. Feel the deep, restorative heavying of your limbs as you fully accept the protection of this room. Your breath is becoming slow and steady, perfectly synchronized with the quiet, invisible respirations of the resting garden around you. The details of the glass dome, the sleeping trees, and the fragrant herbs are slowly melting away, turning into a soft, formless cloud of pure comfort that cradles your spirit. You are sinking deeper now, drifting far away from the conscious shore, slipping effortlessly into the vast, warm and beautiful darkness of a profound, dreamless sleep. Let your awareness drift even further into the deep, velvety shadows, moving silently away from the glass orangeries and stepping into a world of profound intellect, old paper, and ancient wood. Imagine finding yourself inside the majestic library of an isolated university or an old stone monastery in the late 19th century, during the quietest hours after midnight. This is a sanctuary built purely for the mind, a grand, high-ceilinged hall where the chaotic noise of the world's busy marketplaces has never been allowed to enter, and where the frantic passage of daily time is completely swallowed by the immense, comforting weight of history. As you move through the dark space, your footsteps make no sound upon the thick, woven Persian carpets that line the long aisles. The air here is beautifully cool, dense, and perfectly still, carrying the rich, nostalgic aroma of aged leather bindings, sweet beeswax polish, and the faint grounding scent of dried lavender placed between old pages. All around you, towering bookshelves carved from solid, dark English oak rise up from the floor like silent wooden cliffs, stretching all the way to the vaulted ceiling. On these shelves rest tens of thousands of handmade volumes, their spines gilded with faded gold letters that capture the stray, silver beams of moonlight filtering through the tall, leaded glass windows. In the centre of the hall, long reading tables made of polished mahogany sit completely cleared of the day's labour. The heavy bronze lamps have been extinguished, their metal now cool to the touch. On one table, an antique terrestrial globe rests in its brass meridian, no longer being spun by curious hands, holding the entire world perfectly still in the darkness. Nearby, a heavy leather inkstand and a single goose-quill pen lie undisturbed on a green velvet blotter. The scholars, the thinkers, and the travellers who spent their days reading these pages have long since closed their notebooks, put away their spectacles, and retired to their warm beds, leaving the entire kingdom of knowledge to sleep in absolute peace. There is a unique, healing stillness that lives within a silent library at night. It is the peace of certainty. Inside these walls, every great question that humanity has ever asked, Every map drawn by brave sailors navigating dangerous oceans, and every philosophy created to understand the human heart has already been written down, bound, and safely placed on a shelf. There is no more urgent research to be done tonight, no more debates to win, and no more intellectual problems to solve. The truths of the universe are not running away. They are sitting quietly in the dark, resting in their leather cases, waiting patiently for a distant morning that is in no hurry to arrive. Let your own busy mind find its reflection in this magnificent hall of quiet thoughts tonight. Your brain has spent the entire day gathering information, solving problems, navigating conversations, and trying to organize the world around you. But right now, the library doors are closed. The heavy velvet curtains have been drawn shut against the night sky, blocking out the demands of tomorrow. You do not need to analyze anything anymore. You do not need to figure out your life, and you do not need to find answers to the questions that keep your mind awake. Every thought you have had today can now be gently closed, like a heavy leather book, and slipped back onto its proper shelf. Feel the beautiful cooling relief that washes over your forehead and your temples as you completely resign from the act of thinking. Your mind is becoming as vast, as dark, and as quiet as the space between the bookshelves, entirely free of clutter and noise. Your breathing is a slow, rhythmic whisper that echoes through the silence of your room, steady and untroubled. Let the images of the old library, the oak shelves, and the sleeping books softly dissolve into the dark, leaving you floating in a warm, weightless cloud of pure rest. You are sinking deeper now, drifting far beyond the waking shore, entering the deep, endless, and beautiful quiet of a perfect night's sleep. Let your consciousness drift even further out now, passing gently through the quiet library halls and travelling toward the edge of the world, where the land meets the vast, eternal cradle of the sea. Imagine finding yourself inside the wooden dining room of a sturdy, stone-built house perched on a lonely cliff overlooking the Atlantic Ocean in the deepest hours of a 19th-century night. This room has hosted generations of fishermen, sailors, and coastal travellers who gathered around its long pine table to share warm stews, dark bread, and stories of dangerous voyages. But now, at midnight, the inhabitants are all fast asleep, and the room has entered into a profound, hypnotic dialogue with the ancient rhythm of the waters below. Inside the room is a sanctuary of absolute domestic order and peace. The long pine table has been scrubbed completely clean with sea salt and fresh water, its pale grain shining faintly under the soft moonlight that pours through the multi-paned windows. Along the wooden dresser, heavy pewter mugs, hand-painted ceramic plates, and delicate glass goblets have all been washed, dried, and turned upside down on soft linen cloths. They rest there in perfect undisturbed rows, no longer clattering with the energy of dinner conversations, but simply reflecting the silver, watery light of the moon. A heavy wool curtain hangs beside the window, thick enough to block out the damp sea chill, creating an inner pocket of warmth that is perfectly insulated from the wild, open elements outside. Through the thick glass of the windows, the sound of the ocean filters into the room, not as a chaotic storm, but as the most magnificent slow-motion lullaby ever created. You can hear the long, deep sigh of a massive wave as it gathers itself in the darkness, rolls toward the shore, and breaks softly against the smooth pebbles at the base of the cliff. Then there is a long, beautiful pause, a moment of complete suspension before the water slowly retreats back into the deep, pulling the tiny stones with a faint, rhythmic murmur. This endless, unbroken cycle of the tide has been repeating every few seconds for millions of years, entirely indifferent to human history, human empires, or human worries. It is the very heartbeat of the planet, a sound so steady and predictable that it dissolves every trace of tension from the air. There is an incredible sense of safety in being inside this warm, wooden room while the great ocean breathes outside. The house has been built to endure. Its foundations are anchored deep into the living rock of the cliff, and its heavy oak beams have weathered 1,000 winter gales. Inside you are completely protected. The sea is vast and deep, but you do not have to navigate it tonight. You do not have to watch the horizon for storms, and you do not have to guide any ships back to port. The ocean is taking care of itself, the earth is turning on its axis, and your only responsibility is to allow your mind to be carried away by this beautiful aquatic rhythm. Let your own breathing begin to match the slow, magnificent rising and falling of the tide outside that coastal window. With every breath in, imagine the clean, cool energy of the sea air filling your lungs. With every breath out, feel yourself releasing a long, slow wave of relaxation down through your body, from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. You are completely warm, entirely secure, and beautifully disconnected from the busy demands of the land. The modern world, with its noisy streets and endless digital static, has completely vanished. There is only the dark room, the clean table, and the ancient soothing song of the sea rocking you to sleep. You are drifting now, sinking deeper and deeper into the soft velvet dark, perfectly prepared to enter the dreamless quiet of a perfect night's rest. Let your awareness drift even further across the vast dark oceans of time, leaving the coastal cliffs behind and settling softly into a world of absolute simplicity, shadows, and meditative grace. Imagine finding yourself inside a traditional wooden tea house on the quiet outskirts of Kyoto, Japan, during the deepest hours of a 17th century night. This small room, constructed from fragrant cedarwood, woven tatami mats and sliding paper shoji screens, was designed with a single sacred purpose: to strip away the complex illusions of the world and to celebrate the pure, unadorned beauty of the present moment. Here, there are no grand marble pillars or heavy gold-gilded plates. There is only the quiet eloquence of natural materials resting in the dark. The room is completely enveloped in a soft, smoky dimness that feels almost tangible, like a warm velvet blanket. In the center of the floor, a small square hearth is cut into the tatami mats. The charcoal fire that burned brightly during the evening tea gathering has now settled into a mound of soft, powdery white ash, glowing with the faintest, deepest red embers that refuse to disturb the dark. Resting above these embers is an old, heavy cast-iron kettle, its surface beautifully textured by years of fire and water. The water inside has stopped boiling, no longer sending up thick clouds of steam, but emitting only a tiny, almost imperceptible murmur, a low, rhythmic hum that sounds like the distant wind blowing through a pine forest on a far-off mountain. Nearby, on a low wooden tray, a single ceramic tea bowl rests upside down on a dark silk cloth. The bowl was shaped by a master craftsman's hands, intentionally left asymmetrical, its dark glaze showing subtle cracks and imperfections that hold the silver moonlight filtering through the paper screen. This is the beauty of time, the peaceful realization that nothing lasts, nothing is finished, and nothing is perfect. In this room, that truth is not a source of sadness, but a source of ultimate freedom. When you accept that the world is inherently imperfect and fleeting, the frantic need to control your life simply evaporates, leaving behind a profound crystalline stillness. Just outside the sliding shoji screen lies a tiny enclosed stone garden. The paper of the screen acts as a beautiful soft focus lens, blurring the sharp realities of the outside world into gentle shapes of grey and silver. Through the screen you can see the faint silhouette of a single ancient stone lantern, its small hollow chamber completely dark now. The thick cushions of green moss covering the garden stones are drinking in the heavy midnight dew, and a small bamboo water pipe drops a single clear drop of water into a stone basin every few minutes. Each drop falls into the water with a clean hollow plop that echoes through the night, a solitary sound that somehow makes the surrounding silence feel 1,000 times deeper, 1,000 times more permanent. Let your own spirit step onto the clean, cool tatami mats of this silent room tonight. You have spent your entire day striving, organizing, adjusting, and trying to make everything perfect in your life. But right now, inside this sanctuary of shadows, you are allowed to completely lay down that heavy burden. You do not need to be perfect tonight. You do not need to have your life completely figured out before you close your eyes. Like the old ceramic bowl on the tray, Your flaws, your unfinished tasks, and your worries are completely accepted by the night. They are just a natural part of your human story, and they can rest exactly as they are. Feel the profound, cooling relief that fills your mind as you align your thoughts with this ancient philosophy of letting go. Your body is becoming as still and grounded as the heavy stone basin in the garden, sinking effortlessly into the comfort of your bed. Your breathing is a slow, shallow wave, moving in and out with the same effortless ease as the night air passing through the bamboo groves outside, the tea house, the iron kettle, and the misty garden are slowly fading into a soft, formless mist of pure tranquility. You are drifting now, floating deeper into the dark, completely surrendering to the beautiful, endless peace of a deep and dreamless sleep. Let your consciousness drift now to another corner of the sleeping earth, leaving the minimalist wooden tea houses behind and travelling to a land of silent snow, grand stone walls, and deep, majestic winter night. Imagine finding yourself inside a vast, high-ceilinged dining hall of a secluded imperial palace in northern Europe during the late 19th century. Outside the towering arched windows, the winter has laid a thick, heavy blanket of pure white snow over the frozen landscape. The dark pine forests are laden with frost, and tiny crystalline snowflakes are falling silently through the freezing air, spinning lazily under the pale light of a distant moon. But inside this massive stone sanctuary, the elements have no power. The world is completely warm, silent, and safe. The scale of this room is magnificent, yet in the midnight hours it feels as intimate and protective as a small cradle. The long banquet table, carved from solid, dark mahogany and capable of seating 100 guests, has been completely cleared and polished to a mirror-like shine. The heavy silver candelabras that held hundreds of flickering wax candles during the evening feast have been extinguished, their metal now cool and glowing with a faint frosted silver sheen under the moonlight. The grand porcelain plates with their intricate gold leaf borders, the crystal wine chalices that caught the light of the fire, and the heavy linen napkins have all been swept away by silent hands, leaving the vast surface of the wood looking like a dark frozen lake of absolute tranquility. In the corners of the great hall, massive fireplaces carved from smooth white marble hold the remnants of giant oak logs that burned fiercely hours ago. The brilliant orange flames have long since disappeared, replaced by a thick, heavy bed of glowing crimson embers that slowly turn into soft silver ash. These embers release no noise, no crackle, and no smoke, but they continue to radiate a deep, penetrating, and luxurious warmth that fills the entire volume of the room. This warmth hangs in the air like an invisible shield, a soft barrier that completely isolates the interior from the sub-zero winds howling across the distant steppes outside the thick glass. There is a profound sense of psychological comfort in being enveloped by such immense stability. The stone walls of this palace are feet thick, built by master masons centuries ago to withstand the most brutal winters history could offer. Inside this sanctuary, you are entirely out of the reach of nature's harshness. You do not have to fight the cold, you do not have to travel through the dark, and you do not have to endure the freezing wind. The world outside is frozen in time, and inside, the palace is holding you in a state of absolute unshakable security. The busy court, the political discussions, the music of the grand balls, everything has been silenced, leaving only the pure essence of rest. Let your own mind seek shelter within this grand, winter-proof sanctuary tonight. Your room is your own private palace, an impenetrable fortress built to keep the coldness, the stress, and the chaotic demands of the modern world entirely outside your door. You are allowed to let your thoughts freeze over, stopping their restless movement, just like the quiet winter landscape outside. You don't need to carry the weight of your responsibilities into the dark. You can leave them at the threshold, safely locked away. Your only task is to sink into the deep, luxurious warmth of your bed, allowing your body to become as heavy and still as the great stone foundations beneath you. Feel your breathing slow down, becoming a faint, rhythmic whisper that matches the slow, invisible cooling of the marble hearths. The images of the silver candelabras, the The dark mahogany and the silent snow are slowly drifting away, turning into a soft, formless blanket of absolute peace that wraps around your consciousness. You are sinking deeper now, letting go of the last threads of awareness, floating effortlessly into the vast, warm and beautiful darkness of a perfect deep sleep. Let your awareness adjust once more, gently leaving the open-air courtyards of the south and travelling to the high, cosy rooftops of a great city, sleeping under a soft autumn rain. Imagine finding yourself inside a spacious, timber-beamed attic loft in Paris during the twilight hours of a late 19th century night. Outside, a gentle, steady rain is falling from the dark October sky, washing the cobblestone streets far below and drumming a soft, continuous and rhythmic lullaby against the sloping zinc roof and the large glass skylights. Inside this elevated sanctuary, you are completely removed from the bustle of the world, wrapped in a warm, dimly lit cocoon of absolute solitude and peace. The room is a beautiful testament to the quiet hours of a creative day that has reached its natural end. In the centre of the space, a rustic oak dining table sits in total stillness. The simple ceramic bowls and iron spoons from a comforting evening meal of warm broth and crusty bread have been pushed aside, completely clean and at rest. A heavy clay teapot sits nearby, no longer sending up steam, its dark surface holding the faint amber reflection of the dying fire. The thick wool rugs on the wooden floorboards swallow any hint of sound, creating an atmosphere that feels beautifully insulated, dense with comfort, and entirely safe from the damp, chilly air of the city outside. Against the far wall, a small black cast-iron stove holds the final precious embers of the evening's firewood. The brilliant flames have settled down into a deep, pulsing crimson glow that breathes a gentle, steady warmth into the room. Every now and then a tiny piece of wood settles with a faint, comforting pop, a sound so small and isolated that it only serves to emphasize the magnificent silence that fills the rest of the loft. Above you, the heavy wooden rafters, dark with age, curve protectively over the space like the hull of an ancient ship, holding the world at bay and creating a perfect pocket of security just for you. The true magic of this rooftop sanctuary is the rain. Through the thick misted glass of the skylight, you can hear the millions of tiny water drops hitting the roof in an unbroken, chaotic, yet perfectly harmonious chorus. It is a white noise designed by nature itself, a sound that has no beginning and no end, repeating its soothing cadence second after second. This steady patter completely drowns out any distant echoes of the city, the iron wheels of late-night carriages, the footsteps of night watchmen, the heavy ticking of distant church clocks. Everything is washed away, leaving only the pure, immediate reality of this warm, dry room and the beautiful knowledge that you have nowhere else to go, nothing else to see, and no one else to answer to tonight. Let your own mind retreat into this high, protected attic. Tonight, your bed is your ultimate fortress under the rainy sky. The responsibilities of your waking life, the noise of the crowded streets, and the endless tasks of tomorrow are all far below you, separated by layers of stone, wood, and the vast canvas of the night air. You do not need to navigate the weather, you do not need to fix the roof, and you do not need to worry about the storm. The rain is doing the work of cleansing the world, and your only job is to lie perfectly still, allowing your body to be cradled by the heavy, warm air of your sanctuary. Feel the profound weight of relaxation settling into your eyes, your jaw and your shoulders, melting away the last remnants of daytime tension. Your breath has become as slow and steady as the falling rain, moving in a peaceful, natural rhythm that connects you to the quiet world around you. The image of the dark wood beams, the glowing iron stove and the misty glass is slowly softening, turning into a beautiful formless mist of pure tranquility. You are drifting now, sinking deeper and deeper into the velvet darkness, completely surrendered to the endless healing peace of a perfect dreamless sleep. Let your consciousness climb even higher now, leaving the rainy city rooftops behind and drifting deep into the majestic, silent peaks of the high mountains, where the air is pure and the world is wrapped in an eternal winter peace. Imagine finding yourself inside the upper room of a sturdy pine and stone chalet perched on a snowy slope in the Swiss Alps during the deepest hours of an 18th century midnight. Outside, the vast mountain wilderness is frozen in time. Giant fields of untouched snow glow like pale diamonds under the brilliant winter stars, and a quiet frost has traced delicate, lace-like patterns across the small glass windows. The world out there is grand, ancient and cold, but inside this wooden sanctuary you're enveloped in a deep, absolute and protective warmth. The room is a masterpiece of rustic safety, built by hand from massive trunks of slow-growing alpine pine that still release a faint, comforting scent of resin and forest floor into the air. In the centre of the space, a heavy hand-hewn wooden table sits completely bare and at rest. The simple wooden bowls and carved spoons from the evening's hearty mountain supper have been thoroughly washed, dried and stacked neatly on an open shelf, their grain glowing softly in the dim light. A heavy wool blanket hangs over the doorway, and thick woven drapes block out the night sky, turning the interior into a private fortress of comfort, completely separate from the immense freezing altitudes outside. In the corner of the room, a large hearth built from rugged river stones holds the glowing heart of the home. The bright, snapping pine logs from earlier have crumbled into a thick, heavy bed of deep orange and crimson embers that slowly pulse with life. They release no noise, no smoke, and no sudden crackle. They simply radiate a steady, dense, and penetrating heat that warms the dry air and keeps the mountain chill 1,000 miles away. Every now and then a faint, distant whisper of the wind brushes past the sturdy wooden roof, not as a threat, but as a gentle reminder of how perfectly insulated, how entirely safe, and how beautifully hidden you are from the wild world outside. There is a profound, healing solitude that lives at this high altitude, up here, above the busy valleys, the crowded towns, and the chaotic schedules of human civilization. There is no noise to filter through the walls, and no expectations to meet. The mountains do not change, the snow does not rush to melt, and the night does not hurry toward the dawn. Everything moves in a slow geological rhythm of perfect stability. You are allowed to match that stability tonight. You do not have to climb any mountains. You do not have to clear the snow, and you do not have to worry about the paths below. The entire landscape has laid down its head to rest, and you are permitted to do the exact same. Let your own busy mind find its resting place within this alpine sanctuary tonight. Your bed is your private refuge on the edge of the world. The worries of your waking life, the digital static of the modern world, and the endless tasks that drain your energy are all thousands of feet below you, completely vanished into the mountain mist. You do not need to think about them, you do not need to organize them, and you do not need to solve them before you close your eyes. Like the deep, steady roots of the pine trees buried beneath the snow, your only task tonight is to remain still, to drink in the absolute safety of this warm room, and to let yourself be held by the heavy gravity of the dark. Feel the deep, soothing heavying of your body as you fully surrender to the comfort of your mattress. Your breathing is becoming slow, deep, and perfectly regular, matching the quiet, pulsing warmth of the stone hearth. The images of the wooden beams, the glowing embers and the silent snow are slowly dissolving into a soft, formless cloud of total peace that cradles your spirit. You are drifting now, floating far beyond the waking shore, sinking effortlessly into the vast, dark and beautiful ocean of a perfect night's rest. Let your awareness drift once more, gently turning away from the high alpine peaks and descending softly into the rolling, peaceful hills of the south, where the earth is sweet, the air is fragrant, and the night carries the very essence of relaxation. Imagine finding yourself inside the rustic stone dining room of an old farmhouse nestled in the heart of a lavender valley in Provence, France, during the quietest hours of a 19th century summer night. Outside, the vast purple fields that stretched to the horizon under the golden sun have faded into soft, dark shadows under the silver gaze of the moon. The warm breeze of the daytime has completely died down, leaving behind an absolute crystalline stillness that feels like a physical embrace. Inside the farmhouse, the architecture itself seems to breathe with a calm, ancient wisdom. The thick stone walls, built by hand from local sun-baked limestone, hold the perfect, refreshing coolness of the night, creating a natural barrier against the lingering heat of the day. In the centre of the room, a long dining table crafted from solid textured olive wood sits in total repository. The simple earthenware jugs that held cold, clean water from the deep stone well and the rough ceramic plates from the evening meal have been carefully cleared away. The surface of the wood is bare, smooth and beautifully still, catching the soft, watery moonlight that slips through the slats of the heavy wooden window shutters. Looking up toward the darkness of the ceiling, you can see the long, beautiful rafters made of dark chestnut timber. Hanging from these beams in neat, dense rows are hundreds of bundles of wild lavender gathered by hand during the peak of the summer harvest. As the night air gently moves through the room, these dried flowers release their clean, soothing, and deeply calming essential oils into the dark. It is a fragrance that fills every corner of the space, a rich, herbal, and timeless perfume that has been used for thousands of years to quiet the racing mind, ease the heavy heart, and prepare the human spirit for the ultimate surrender of sleep. Just outside the open casement window, the natural world has entered a state of perfect meditation. The intense buzzing chorus of the summer cicadas that filled the afternoon air has completely vanished into the midnight silence. There is no wind in the olive trees, no movement in the tall grass, and no sound from the distant stone villages scattered across the hills. The entire valley is holding its breath under a deep blue sky crowded with a million brilliant stars. You are perfectly placed within this landscape, not as an observer, but as a part of the earth itself, melting into the safe, predictable rhythms of the countryside. Let your own mind find its absolute peace within this fragrant stone sanctuary tonight. You have spent your entire day managing tasks, carrying thoughts and navigating the complexities of your world, but right now, inside this quiet farmhouse, you are completely free from any obligation. You do not need to produce anything, you do not need to cultivate anything, and you do not need to think about the harvest of tomorrow. The fields are sleeping, the stone walls are protecting you, and the scent of lavender is gently washing over your senses, untying every small knot of tension that has gathered in your mind. Feel your body becoming beautifully heavy, sinking into the deep comfort of your bed, with the exact same weight as the ancient stones of the farmhouse. Your breath is slow, deep, and completely natural, drawing in the healing fragrance of the room and letting out a long, quiet sigh of total relief. The images of the olive wood table, the hanging lavender, and the starlit valley are slowly melting into a soft, hazy cloud of pure tranquility. You are drifting now, floating deeper into the dark, completely surrendering to the endless, beautiful peace of a perfect, dreamless sleep. Let your awareness drift now to a different, incredibly peaceful corner of the world, leaving the lavender hills behind and travelling to a land of ancient sands, massive stone fortresses, and deep desert starlight. Imagine finding yourself inside the thick-walled dining room of a beautiful sandstone house built on the edge of the Great Desert in Rajasthan, India, during the quietest hours of an 18th century winter night. Outside, the vast dunes of golden sand that burned with intense heat during the day have completely cooled down under the midnight sky, turning into a silent, frozen sea of silver shadows. A crisp, sharp desert chill hangs in the open air, but inside these massive stone walls you are wrapped in a luxurious cocoon of perfect warmth, soft fabrics, and absolute security. The room is a masterclass in ancient architectural comfort, designed explicitly to insulate its inhabitants from the extreme elements of the wilderness. The walls, feet thick and carved from local honey-coloured sandstone, hold a gentle, radiant warmth that was captured from the daytime sun. On the floor, heavy hand-woven wool rugs, with intricate geometric patterns stretch from wall to wall, swallowing every trace of sound and creating a dense layer of comfort underfoot. In the center of the space, a low wooden dining table sits in total stillness. The grand brass platters and small silver bowls that held aromatic curries, rich saffron rice and flatbreads during the evening meal have all been washed, polished and locked away in heavy teakwood chests, leaving the low table completely bare and peaceful. In the corner of the room, a beautiful clay brazier holds the soft, glowing remnants of charcoal embers. They do not snap or spark, but release a steady, deep red warmth that keeps the desert chill completely at bay. Nearby, a tiny cone of handmade incense has burned down to a small dome of white ash, leaving behind a faint, deeply grounding perfume of sandalwood, frankincense, and sweet amber floating in the still air. This scent hangs like a protective mist in the dark, a timeless aroma that has been used for generations to quiet the overactive mind, anchor the spirit, and clear away the residual anxieties of the waking day. Through the small, beautifully carved stone lattice windows, the infinite desert sky is visible, looking like a dark blue velvet canopy, crowded with millions of large, brilliant stars that seem close enough to touch. There is a magnificent cosmic silence that lives in the desert at night. There are no city sounds here, no rustling tree leaves, and no passing carriages. The wilderness is completely still, frozen in a state of pure, timeless meditation. You are entirely safe within your sandstone fortress, protected from the vast emptiness outside, held in a space that is perfectly curated for your rest. Let your own mind seek shelter within this warm, desert-proof sanctuary tonight. Your bedroom is your private fortress, an unshakable haven built to keep the coldness, the chaos, and the endless mental static of the modern world entirely outside your territory. You do not need to navigate any vast spaces tonight. You do not need to plan for the journey of tomorrow, and you do not need to solve the problems of the world. The desert is at rest. The embers are slowly cooling, and the ancient stone walls are holding you in a tight, protective embrace. Your only responsibility is to allow your thoughts to dissolve into the dark, matching the vast, beautiful silence of the stars above. Feel the deep, luxurious heavying of your eyelids and the total relaxation of your limbs as you completely surrender to the comfort of your bed. Your breathing is slow, deep, and perfectly steady, drawing in the soothing warmth of the room and releasing a long, quiet wave of peace down through your entire body. The images of the sandstone walls, the brass platters, and the starlit desert are slowly softening, turning into a formless, beautiful cloud of total tranquility that rocks your spirit away from the conscious world. You are drifting now, sinking down, down, into the deep, sweet, and endless ocean of a perfect, dreamless sleep. Let your awareness drift once again, travelling gently across the silver-lit continents to settle into the gentle rolling hills of Tuscany, Italy, during the quietest hours of an 18th-century autumn night. Imagine finding yourself inside the thick stone walls of an ancient farmhouse, where generations of olive growers and winemakers have sought refuge at the end of long, sun-drenched days. Outside, the rustic landscape of vineyards and cypress trees is completely blanketed in a deep, midnight silence. A soft, cool mist has rolled in from the valleys, settling over the fertile earth and dampening the old brick paths. But inside this sturdy stone sanctuary, the atmosphere is dense with a comforting, heavy warmth that promises absolute rest. In the centre of the kitchen and dining space, a massive table made from a single thick plank of aged walnut wood rests in total stillness. The table has been meticulously scrubbed with coarse salt and spring water after the evening meal. Its surface is bare and smooth, reflecting the soft, pale moonlight that filters through the small glass windows. On the open wooden shelves, Sleepy History with Benedict is created for relaxation, entertainment, and sleep purposes. The stories shared on this channel are inspired by historical events, daily life, and real periods in history, but they may be simplified, adapted, or narrated in a calming way to enhance the listening experience. This content is not intended to be a precise academic or educational source. While we aim to stay generally accurate, some details may be altered for storytelling flow and relaxation. Please do not rely on this channel as a primary source for historical research or study. By listening, you acknowledge that this content is designed to help you unwind, relax, and fall asleep. Thank you for your understanding and support.